separately.
In retrospect, Officer Larry regretted asking how the accident happened. In retrospect, Officer Larry regretted asking how the accident happened.
All right, so the uniform circular motion means something is moving in a circle at a constant speed. So the motion is occurring at a constant speed in a circle. That's what it means.
The moment of truth. Each pilot has to practice his strain in the centrifuge. As it picks up speed, the gondola on the end of the arm swings out, turning the pilot on his side. This directs the G-forces from head to toe, simulating a high G-turn in an aircraft. The centrifuge rotates once every 2 seconds. For a young pilot, it's quite an ordeal. The instructors know how tough it can be. They filmed themselves in the centrifuge on one occasion, recording the full G-lock horror.
Those videos are awesome. I've seen a few of those.
Pilots call these recovery spasms doing the funky chicken.
Okay, how is that right?
Yeah, you'll be seeing more of these later. Okay, so this guy is exposed to 7 Gs, right? Or close to 7 Gs. So they kept him there until it passed out. So the question is, how do they induce acceleration at a constant speed? Okay, so this was a test question previously. Most of you guys said, oh, because the person is changing direction, and changing direction is acceleration. Because when the direction changes, it changes the velocity, so that's an acceleration. Okay, so for those of you guys who said because the direction changes, you end up getting 1 out of 2 points. And some of you guys also said, well, changing direction changes velocity, and changing velocity is acceleration. That was a little bit more of a justification. Now you got 1.5 out of 2 points. All right. I think with the exception of 1 or 2 people, no one gets full credit for it because you didn't really fully justify it. So where do we get these definitions from, guys? We get these definitions from real life. So the mathematical representation of real life is these definitions or the formulas that you're looking at. How do we know that the change in direction is acceleration? That's what I was asking in essence. So how do we know that something is accelerating? The car is accelerating. What happens on the inside? Unstrapped objects in the opposite direction, right? The brakes on, the unstrapped objects will move forward. So speeding up is acceleration. Slowing down is acceleration. Also, the changing direction is acceleration. And here's how we know.
In the U.S. in the early 1900s.
We know changing direction is acceleration because notice that unstrapped objects, in this case the people, are moving away from the center. All right, so which means that the acceleration is directed in the opposite direction. All right, so this is the explanation that I was looking for. All right, so even if the people are moving at a constant speed because they're changing direction, the unstrapped objects in circular motion, will move away from the center, meaning that the acceleration is directed towards the center. All right, so this is known as the centripetal acceleration or center-seeking acceleration. All right, so the astronauts are actually in an upright centrifuge, meaning that they're sitting up with their backs against the wall, or the seat in this case. Acceleration is directed towards the center, blood is rushing away from towards the back of their heads. Okay, so that's what's happening. So that's what I was looking for on the test. So it's known as the center-seeking or centripetal acceleration. All right, pick out the best answer. All right, I see a lot of D's, so D is the best answer, right? So the car is accelerated inward towards the center. Versus 5. So that guy who just passed out, was exposed to about 7 Gs. So how did they figure out what speed that the 7 Gs of acceleration is going to be induced? All right, so let's take a look at the mathematical modeling of it. So again, this is not a derivation, it's just a modeling. That's going to fit the observation. We're ignoring the derivations for now. All right. So uniform circular motion means that the object is moving at a constant speed, so the speed is not going to change. R is your radius. And the acceleration is directed towards the center. So this is the formula that we are using. Square of the speed divided by the radius. With that proof. Okay, so V is your speed, R is your radius, and that is going to be your centripetal acceleration. So C means centripetal or center seeking or center directed acceleration. All right, so that's the formula that we will use. Square of the speed divided by the radius is going to give you the centripetal acceleration. Let's focus on a few real-life examples, just to get a sense for it. All right, guys, I'm muting everyone, so if you have to say something, unmute yourself.
Anyone who's ever been to an amusement park has felt the force of gravity. 4G on a state-of-the-art roller coaster. It's the G-forces pinning you to your seat that bring the thrills. Ever since planes flew in combat, pilots have been aware of the danger from G-forces. In 1917, a World War I pilot reached 4.5 G during a sharp turn. He reported that everything went dark and misty in front of him. In World War II, there were stories of German Stuka pilots blacking out at 7 G. But the advent of the latest jet fighters, like the F-15 and 16 in the United States, and the MiG-29 in the former Soviet Union, has brought a new twist to the problem. These immensely powerful planes can turn faster and tighter than any previous jet. Tight turning is vital, because in a dogfight, the winner is the pilot who can turn inside his opponent, get behind him, and shoot him down.
When you roll into the turn, if you don't prepare yourself, what can happen is the G-forces essentially can overcome your body. That feeling of heaviness translates as well to the blood, which is essentially pooling down in the lower extremities of your body and not staying up in your brain to allow you to function.
As the plane rolls on its side to turn, and the pilot rolls with it, the gravitational force is pushing from the head to the feet. The tighter and faster this turn, the greater the G-force. In the latest jets, it can go up to 9 G, 9 times the force of gravity. The result? The pilot's blood is forced away from his brain. Without blood, the brain becomes starved of oxygen, with the potentially disastrous result of G-lock. Luke Air Base, Arizona. Here the cream of America's trainee pilots learn to fly the F-16. Some will encounter the full horror of G-lock. Chief Instructor and Gulf War veteran Major Robert Kesterson can pass on first-hand knowledge. On a training run in Georgia, he was overcome by G-forces.
We were out in a 2v2 situation where the adversaries happened to be F-15s, and we were fighting these guys who happened to be fairly high speed, about 520 knots or so. And we know we had merged with these guys, and we were just looking for them visually, and I couldn't see them. I rolled inverted and looked down, and they were just below me. So without thinking about it, without getting prepared, I just pulled back on the stick, and it was about an 8.5 G pull.
Major Kesterson began to suffer the classic symptoms of G-lock. As the blood drained out of his head, the first organs to be affected were his eyes, resulting in tunnel vision. Then he lost any sense of color. And then, gray out. He could still hear, but that was all.
About 40 degrees through that pull, I started getting the gray out, and then went completely gray and couldn't see anything, basically.
The experienced Major Kesterson, knowing the warning signs, pulled out of his turn just in time. The blood returned to his brain, his sight came back, and he got home safely.
Okay, so here's a discussion point. In a dogfight situation. All right, so imagine that you got two fighter jets moving at the same speed. One fighter jet is going to be able to do a tighter turn. One pilot is able to do a tighter turn. The other guy is not going to be able to do a tighter turn. So who has the advantage in a dogfight? First one or the second one, and why?
The outside one, because you're not having the same amount of G-force.
Okay, it's Christian. I'm going to give you 5 points for saying the wrong thing. The outside one, I'm thinking he's going to be more comfortable, right? But who's going to have the advantage over the other guy? The guy who can do a tighter turn? Yeah, the tighter turn. Okay, why?
He'll be able to complete his turn faster than the outside circle, so he'll end up behind the outside circle.
Give yourself 10 points for that one. Guys, the guy who can handle a high G load, the tighter the turn is, the smaller the radius is, the bigger the acceleration is, right? So the fighter jet pilot who can handle a tighter turn has the upper hand because he can do a tighter turn and get behind the other guy. Got it? So hence the reason why. The Air Force, as well as the Navy, they prefer pilots, fighter jet pilots, who can tolerate extremely high G loads without passing out. Okay, so these people usually get handpicked. Everyone gets tested, check to see what their tolerance
Want
is.
to go on to fly the most powerful jets in the world. For some, it'll be the F-16 fighter, others the A-10 tank buster. They have just one day to prove their bodies are up to it. An exciting future awaits them all, but only if they can beat G-lock. A pilot's body can usually withstand 3 to 5 G without any ill effect, but an F-16 can pull 9 G, enough to push the blood from the head right down to the legs.
Today, we're going to go through about 2 hours of academics here in the classroom. And that's when we're going to go back on the stick, on top, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
The effect is to squeeze and narrow the veins and arteries in the lower body, and thus block blood entering from the head and chest.
Okay, I saw a lot of red faces. That's a pretty good sign.
To help them with their strain, pilots wear G-suits, trousers that contain air bladders, which automatically inflate at high G, further squeezing the blood vessels in the legs and abdomen.
The G-suit inflating around the legs makes it easier to squeeze those muscles against it. It makes it easier to contract those muscles.
Okay, so while these guys are training, they do a lot of muscle squeezing, right?
And thus block blood. The effect is to squeeze and narrow the veins and arteries in the
2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
The effect is to squeeze and narrow the veins and arteries in the lower body, and thus block blood entering from the head and chest.
Okay. I saw a lot of red faces. That's a pretty good sign.
As they constrict their muscles as hard as possible, right?
To help them with their strain,
Why do they do that? Because they're trying to control the motion of the blood. They're trying to make sure that the blood is not free to move every which direction. So they're trying to constrain
It's
from moving in the opposite direction of the acceleration.
it's make or break time for Captain Scott Meyer. All the way from Pennsylvania, his ambition is to fly A-10 fighters for the National Guard. It means he has to get up to 7.5 G. 18 months of training will be wasted if he fails.
So this guy is trying to qualify for 7.5 Gs. He wants to qualify to actually fly a fighter jet can handle up to 7.5 Gs.
Have a good ride.
So they'll test him at 7.5. That is easy. He's been training for 18 months. That's 1.5 years. How do you train for something like this? What is it that you do? Let me tell you what not to do. No cardio. Absolutely not. Because it promotes good circulation. Anything that's going to help you build muscles? Absolutely not. Bigger the muscles, the better the circulation. You don't want that. So what's got left? The strength training is good because you want to be able to squeeze those muscles as hard as possible. Anything requiring strength training without building muscles, that's what you need. Another thing that helps is if you can get yourself to a level of healthy, borderline heart disease level, that's kind of hard. That's going to help because the good circulation does not help. It's just going to hamper your process. All right. So just McDonald's a couple of times a week, French fries, just sit in front of the TV and squeeze those muscles. That's what you need. All right. I've seen this like a million times. I didn't even have to see it once. I'm looking at this guy.
First,
This guy seems too healthy to me. All right. If he's going to die, he's not going to die of a heart disease, not anytime soon.
warm-up run without a G-suit
This guy's probably going to have perfect blood circulation.
to establish the level of Gs he can tolerate.
All right, coming up for 3
And he seems very fit. He looks like he's taking care of himself.
He starts to strain, tensing the muscles in his lower body
So the only thing going for him is tensing those muscles, squeezing and tensing, squeezing and tensing.
and breathing in short, sharp bursts.
2, 3. Squeeze the legs.
And he's struggling.
3,
He's about 3 Gs right now. It's not that high.
1,
Now he looks constipated.
2, 3.
I got news for you. That's the last thing you want to see. He's squeezing every single muscle.
All right, come through 5 G. Get more intense. Get
That 5.
more intense. 3. All right, come through 6. 1, 2. All right, knock it
That was too much work. We're almost up to 6. It was 5.
At 6G, he aborts the run.
I mean, this guy trained. His circulation is way too good.
Yeah, you were working pretty hard there.
You can pick him up 7.5 with a G suit. But if they can find someone who can handle it without a G suit, that's what they would do.
Started your train at 3.2,
3.2 is too low. Most of us can handle this without training.
which can be subjective at best, but I think it was a little bit early.
It's 6 flags. When you guys accelerate up and down, that's about 3 Gs. So that's how it is.
That's a rather low tolerance. You go all the way up to 6.6. With the G suit, we should be
You can bring them up, but they're going to look for someone else. Okay.